will be, because Boeing was on the news this week a lot. Another whistleblower has died, but honestly, that I think is natural causes. But I won't be getting into conspiracy theories. It's not something we'll be doing on the stream and at all. You can view plenty of media related to
use
that.
that on your own time. It's not really here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just saying there might be some merit to it, because it's strange. Like, seems like being a Boeing whistleblower is quite dangerous, like more dangerous than being a rapper in Atlanta. So there it is. And we are talking about Boeing because this is a strategic company when it comes to European defense. So those issues didn't start yesterday. They're growing, and honestly, we will need to buy more Boeing shit for the foreseeable future. So that's quite concerning. And the second topic is French myths. So following last week's dive into Polish/Slavic mythology, tonight we will be taking a closer look in the melting pot of cultural myths enriching France. And I'm looking forward to that. There will be something about murderous snails, apparently.
There will be. That might sound a bit cliche when it comes to France, but don't worry, it is scary when you think about it.
I mean, yeah, it is quite scary. Honestly, I don't like snails. I just feel like, I don't know, man. They are slimy. And honestly, one of the worst horrors I can imagine is them crawling all over me. That's yikes.
Come on, man. Last week you talked about elation. You can be scared of a snail right now.
I mean, not scared, just, very, very put off about snails. So, when it comes to Boeing, let's start at the beginning, shall we? There will be an interjection by me later on because it reminds me of something, like this whole picture. It reminds me of another disaster that did happen. So lots of people do pinpoint that start of the issues was when McDonnell Douglass took over Boeing. They did keep the name, they just added their own logo into Boeing logo, and they replaced their top management with their own. But honestly, I have quite a beef with that statement that this is where the problems did start. Because honestly, they were still building very well designed airplanes, and there were no issues with those, no quality issues. So I think the issue might have, originate in the company culture that did bring on, but I don't feel like we can only blame it for that one. Like, come on, that's just preposterous that Boeing has such a grasp on, that McDonnell Douglas has such a grasp on Boeing that they just, went in and decided, hey, let's make it worse on purpose.
That would be a bit of a scapegoat indeed, because at the time, Mark Douglas was still a junior partner to Boeing, which is the reason why they got bought, by the way. And Boeing, despite only absorbing only the top management from Mark Douglas, which is the part of the management that did get into the Boeing higher ups, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to cause a massive paradigm domino effect, a quote unquote amplifying of the already present symptoms in the company. So it just basically exposed what was already there a bit
Yeah,
sooner.
exactly. So I also don't think that this can be just explained. Hey, they just took over the company and now it's bad. It's never that simple. Nothing is. But definitely this did bring on some change because they were focusing on financial results, like first and foremost, rather than anything else, like literally anything else. If you think about it, that's also why they are quite, they shut down like new airplane projects straight out of the window when they just see them being in the window, even if they're young. It's crazy. Like this airplane never had an ability to fly, and then something like that did happen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is typical corporate greed. It's basically, like you said earlier, corporate culture that was already there. But once a company gets old and comfortable, they start to get into certain habits Notably the management, the upper management, the senior echelons start to set in a corporate culture of cutting corners, of doing the best results with minimal effort. And that's when, especially in a sector like aeronautics, uh, danger start to arise because one, for a metaphor, 1 0 on that gets taken out on the sheet, it can be like 100 planes that get one less screw on their door.
Yeah, exactly. So, when it comes to airplanes, especially, if you want to cut corners, there are lots of corners to cut, honestly. And I think that, yes, sure, at first, this didn't result in something bad. I mean, obviously, nothing like that ever is so simple that, hey, you just miss one thing and then everything goes to shit. Never something like that. So when it comes to how it turned out afterwards, they started doing lots of questionable moves for sure, but this was quite a while after McDonnell Douglas acquisition. For now, things were mostly fine. Then we move into 2005 when Boeing, for some goddamn reason, moved to split off their Wichita plant into its own company, tasked with manufacturing the fuselage of 737 and 787. And this is a move I don't get. Like, I get if you want to move to a subcontractor model. I mean, obviously, sure. This is quite sensible if you have like one part and you can source that part from multiple other companies. So you always get the best price, always get the best availability. This is smart. This, however, is stupid because right now you're basically tasking to, create the whole fuselage of an aircraft, which
To a
is
subcontractor.
yeah, to a subcontractor, which is a separate company from you, and you never will be able to find out where they will cut their costs when they will try to do that. They're very motivated to do that after something like that. So when it comes to that move, yeah, just insane. And sure, let's just split off the part of company that was an integral part up to this point, and they just create, oh, it's just a whole fuselage. Sure, this started issues right away. Right away there started to be so-called quality escapes. We will get to the larger quality escapes down the line. But at first, of course, this was basically the same plant, same people that did work there for years. So it was fine. But currently, when you have a subcontractor, the subcontractor has less money in the pot because, of course, it works that way. So in 2020, for example, they cut a lot of jobs, a lot of their top positions, a lot of their best minds were just out the door.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see some issues that will start because Boeing could weather the storm, sure, but not Spirit Air Systems. So now they hired people who had basically no clue how to do those things, and lots of the senior people did just go to retirement. So there's no bringing them back or had to requalify to do something else, which, trust me, they will find another work after doing something crucial like that.
Yes, that's basically how you said it. There's a short, there's a shortage in workforce from the senior part, so you have to bring in less experienced people, and that's the most incriminating part is the delegation to of the fuselage to Spirit, basically, because not only, as you said, they have less money, they have less manpower than you, and you to hide behind the subcontractor's possible theoretical failures as to weather the storm. That's basically how to say this. That's incriminating behavior right off the start.
Yeah, so when it comes to stuff like that, I wouldn't necessarily yet say this is like incriminating, that they knew that this would result in that. I mean, they just had to cut their losses for their part. But that's the sort of thing that will happen to Boeing, because Boeing like definitely did know that this is the risk. Because if you split the whole plant like that, then come on, like you do lose the oversight. You do lose the ability to ensure everything is built correctly. You can generate as much documentation as you want, but if the people won't read that,
Hmm.
and that's the issue that I see. It's just insane to split something like that, like this up. So also there
I,
were another splits with Dreamliner. They just created this massive network of subcontractors for everything, and this caused so many issues due to lack of vertical integration, because companies were just they needed to cut each other's price, and there were basically this was a race to bottom,
hmm
which never ends well if you're manufacturing airplane parts, because of course the better quality contractors just pulled out.
hmm
Like, come on, they produce good stuff. They don't need to sell it to Boeing. So this is exactly what happened.
It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah, like race to the bottom, like lowest price, lowest quality.
I believe that you can even point to more recent events, which I'm going to do like right away.
Sure thing.
If I talk to you about the Alaska Airlines video of the part of the aircraft that blew out,
Oh, I will get to that.
I just wanted to bring up the history of Boeing of cutting corners, basically. Um, if I bring up, for example, the Lion Air Flight 610 of Ethiopian Airlines and the 302, there have been some disturbing details that have been coming out from internal emails at Boeing. Notably, there's the cost cutting of the 737 MAX itself. There was, for example, a software fix, the MCAS, which is the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation Systems.
Yeah, they first tried to apply a software fix for a hardware issue, by the way, because the
Yeah,
issue is that they just had one low quality sensor monitoring the angle of attack.
yeah,
And there's no fixing that in software.
and that is the software that is supposed to that part play the part in pushing the plane's nose down to avoid stalls. So
Yeah, which can end in tragedy very, very quickly if you just don't monitor it correctly. If you just don't, if you don't monitor how it's being implemented, and they just said, yeah, that should fix it. Then
yeah,
suddenly it turns out no, planes still did fall out of the sky.
and one other I keep saying incriminating, but I'm gonna say like damning behavior rather. There was a Boeing cost cutting, which meant that they moved their manufacturing to Carolina via the intercession of the former South Carolina governor and later Boeing director Nikki Haley. And South Carolina doesn't have Washington State's tradition of aerospace manufacturing,
Yeah,
but they do have a reputation for cheap labor, though. So that is interesting.
yeah, this is how it ends. If your motivation for creating airplanes is that there should be cheap. And by the way, Boeing did say before that the industry is safety obsessed, which
Hmm.
is very funny considering what happens next. So I wanted to start with Dreamliner because this is the first thing where the cracks started to appear. In Dreamliner, there were issues where lithium-ion batteries did catch fire, but they just used
Hmm.
low-quality lithium-ion batteries. They didn't do proper safety testing for them. This is damning, I would say, but still happens. Like happens to the best of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can say that still.
Yeah, yeah, you can
So
say.
now I wanted to interject with the Ferrac 25 issue because, like all of this, I can smell the same thing. So Ferrac 25 is an insane tragedy that was never supposed to happen in the first place. So the machine before that, this is a radiotherapy machine. It blasts you with radiation to treat cancer.
Hmm.
So before that, they had a bunch of mechanical lockouts to make sure you could never pick wrong options. The new one was operating by software. They said that, oh, now this is simpler to, pinpoint issues. It's faster and it's more secure, which, by the way, it's not more secure. It's just cheaper, honestly. That was the main goal. It was just cheaper. And yeah, the software wasn't developed in a good way. Let's say that the software was developed by a computer enthusiast that is still unnamed to this day.
To this day.
And it's still unknown who did write this. Like, we don't know. Nobody knows. They just found a guy, told him, hey, Sonny, write a software for my radiotherapy machine for me. And this is the whole history. So it blasted people with deadly doses of radiation just because people were typing in doses too fast. Nobody tested for that, which is just insane. And also the same computer you were entering the radiation doses on, this was the same computer that in real time was tasked with safety of the machine, which is a big no-no. It needs to be two separate machines, because if it's just one, then, one point of failure, very easy.
Yeah, it's just like you say, like even in an industry as closely monitored as the medical one, just like you said, even then you can have tragic accidents that can basically be summed as involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah, absolutely. And here it was just, you could find out that this did end, like it would end like that, because they didn't have any sensors that did actually monitor the amount of radiation those machines were outputting, which is just, great. I mean, who wants to check their own assumptions, right? Like, of course, you get it right the first time around, and you just don't care about what happens next. That's
Don't forget, after multiple returns from the patients.
yeah, and this was after multiple deaths already.
Yeah.
They still didn't want to implement the sensors. They still didn't want to, investigate it properly. Frankly, they couldn't. They weren't software experts, so they weren't able to find the issue. They tried to reproduce that, but they just couldn't. And this software also did output so many errors that the operators of the machine were just complacent and were just saw another error. They were just like, oh God, okay, skip. Which ended some people's lives.
Yeah.
So now I want to cut to the first article called Designed by Clowns, which says a lot.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to design by clowns, Boeing messages raised serious questions about 737 MAX. So, internal communication from 2017 show workers referring to the plane's piece per design, which is, just great. And basically, employees did boast of deceiving safety regulators.
They were boasting.
Yeah, they were boasting that, hey, we just said that they don't have to tell the pilots anything about the new system, the MCAS system that we introduced. And yeah, let me just tell the background about MCAS. So here is the article that you can see what MCAS is doing, basically. But I will tell you why MCAS needed to happen. So when it comes to 737 MAX, it has bigger engines, and 737 engines are particularly close to the ground. So due to that, they needed to move them forward by quite a large amount, honestly, to fit the new engines, and they still needed to shrink them, by the way, by a bit to make it fit. So they so that of course changed the flying characteristics of the 737. Like it made the plane nose, basically it pitched up more, which could generate stalls, which are deadly. So they introduced MCAS, maneuvering characteristics augmentation system. The system's job was simple. It was just to push the airplane's nose down when it would detect it was too high. There were two issues with the system. So the first issue was that the pilots didn't know it existed, which is great on its own, right? Like it's totally what responsible company does.
Miscommunications, anyone?
No, like they deliberately basically told that, hey, we need to make sure that we don't that this doesn't end up in the handbook that pilots needs to go through to fly on this model of 737, because if it would be, then we would be asked like, okay, so why we don't have like simulator training, why
And that
we
is
don't
more additional costs, so we can't have that.
Exactly, so we can't have that. And the second cost-cutting measure introduced was it was one single fucking sensor. And I don't know how much an angle of attack sensor costs, but it's a fucking dial with a wing attached to it. Come on. It cannot be that expensive.
Yeah. I've got on the topic of the MCAS, I've got another example of Boeing directly cutting costs.
Yep.
Let me introduce it to you. So, if you are not aware already, Boeing took the decision of outsourcing the development of the 737 MAX MCAS software for contractors that were of Indian origin for as little as $9 per hour. So, first of all, why did they do this? But of course, it's Boeing, they need cheaper cost of production. But
Yeah.
also, they were trying to quote unquote court India because India is a big market and that's a lot of planes they can potentially sell. And basically, what ended up happening is that the steep drop of quality was felt and discovered eventually.
Yeah, and by the
And
way, this is crazy that they didn't pay them more. Like, at least find experts, you know? Like, there are experts in India.
there are, but
But they
they're a
sure as
bit.
hell don't work for $9 an hour.
That is exactly this. Exactly. It's a universal standard. I mean, you can go as low as you want, but people are not going to be willing to be scammed.
Exactly. So then you get the bottom of the bar developers for that,
Like,
which
honestly, I sincerely believe that if AI labor was available, Boeing would have gone for it already.
absolutely, I
Yeah.
mean, they are probably researching it right now when we speak.
Yeah.
I'm
They're
sure
already,
of it.
yeah. They're putting more money into the AI development than in the formation of the pilots, probably.
Yeah, so there were more issues with 737 because they eventually fixed MCAS, right? Like they installed another sensor on every plane. It was a massive recall of every airplane. So I'm not sure if saving on those developers or not putting the sensor in the first place was a good financial decision, because a recall is way more expensive because you need to pay for those to those airlines that they cannot use their aircraft, right? They
Yeah.
need compensation for that, and that compensation isn't cheap. So
Hmm.
in late 2023, I mean, everybody knows about that by now, there was a flight where a plug door blowout occurred. And honestly, nobody died. That's the best thing I can say about that. And that nobody died, it was just the matter that nobody was sitting in the seat right next to that plug door, because if they were, they would be thrown out of the airplane.
Yeah. Yeah. Pure unadulterated luck.
And meanwhile, Boeing just went out to everybody and said, oh, so this issue was, that was Spirit Air Systems part. This was just a quality escape from their factory. So, nothing to see. Like, everything is great. That means it wasn't a big deal at all, and people just growing crazy over nothing. Like, Boeing is still great, because it's the Spirit Aerosystems responsibility of delivering a functioning fucking plane
Hmm.
that doesn't blow out during the flight, Like, it's their responsibility, like, 100%, not Boeing. I mean,
Absolutely.
of course, like it's how it works. If I construct something, I said that, hey, this is basically, a great thing. You can rely that it will work correctly and nobody will die doing using it. And somebody dies, and then I'm saying like, hey, my cousin that I paid in gummy bears did this wrong, so it's not my fault. That helps a lot. And let's go into exceptions because, like this January, Boeing did withdraw the bid for safety exemption for Boeing 737 MAX. And what was that exemption for? Let me tell you. So, it involved an anti-ice system that could overheat and cause the engine nacelle. So this is basically part of, the front of the engine to break apart. It could be aspirated by the engine then, which could cause lots of issues. So this could also generate fuselage penetrating debris, which could endanger passengers in the window seats behind the wing. So, like, great, shrapnel flying at me. And yeah, basically, they wanted a time-limited exemption for that. That's, we will just fix that later. No worries.
Yeah, no
And
worries.
the current engineering solution that they found, it's apparently the best one, is a post-it note in the cockpit that says, don't run it longer than 5 minutes. Which is just, that's, when you have a great company there with unique attitude to solving problems.
Just a note.
Yeah, just a post-it note, because you need that 8 anti-ice system to fly that plane safely, so they cannot just disable it.
Hmm.
I mean, honestly, if not for that, it was needed for safety, they would probably just cut out that system completely.
Yeah, if I could do the bare minimum, I would do it.
Yeah, but now it's just a post-it note, and I'm sure that just start a timer on your iPhone. Oh wait, you can't because pilots
Yeah.
cannot use phones. So let's hope that the pilots will just count from 1 to 300 in their heads to turn it off.
Yeah, even when we have cheap AI labor available, they will still use post-its.
Yeah, they will still try to find cheaper AI labor or just fix it by using Sharpie and the post-it note. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. I, researching for that, I just basically thought about that, hey, my home server, where its only thing is just storing my movie collection, has greater security requirements than lots of stuff at Boeing.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I just created that and wanted something that would just store my movies, I wanted something that if one hard drive fails, that I don't lose all my data, for example, that I don't want anybody from the internet being able to just access it willy-nilly, stuff like that.
Understandable. Yeah,
Stuff like that.
understandable.
But when I look at Boeing, I just think that nobody was asking those questions to themselves. Nobody was just, thinking about that. Everything was supposed to go great. And this is, you reap what you sow, right? Like, this is such a problem when it comes to your culture, your security culture. I just don't find an easy fix for this. Because, if somebody on my team when I work would suggest a fix like that, I would literally want to slap them across the face.
And yeah, and you don't even work in the aeronautics sector, but still, that's obvious to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't even work in aeronautics. I just work in a completely different sector. When the worst thing that can happen is that 40,000 people won't be able to, message
Yeah.
other people. Which, I mean, if it
Yeah.
happens, it's still something that I don't even want to think about it happening like tomorrow, and I want to avoid at all cost. So that's good
Mhm.
to hear that Boeing literally cares about that sort of stuff less than I do. That's reassuring.
Yeah. Very reassuring. In fact, I try to think that it is more naivety rather than purpose than maliciousness. But there's a point when the two blurs, like how to say that. Past a certain point, incompetence is just as dangerous as evil, basically.
Yeah, yeah. They you cannot really distinguish this from actual malice at this point, because if I wanted to kill some people, I would do exactly the same steps as they did. If I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
working on that airplane, because that would I could still blame it on me being an idiot. Which, by the way, I'm not accusing anybody of willingly killing anybody
yeah.
here, but
Disclaimer, yeah, disclaimer. We're not doing this.
I'm not even alleging that. Nothing. Uh, that's just a weird tangent. But basically, it's just insane. And at that point, I would just say, like, how is it even possible that FAA was willing to hear their arguments about that security extension?
I mean, the only possible. I mean, it's quite obvious if I don't turn around, if I don't dance around the point. I would say that similar deals, or at least not exactly similar, but things of that nature, of backroom deals, have happened in the past, enough that it became the norm at one point, and it was just supposed to be another day in the office when they came at the FAA door.
Yeah, so when it comes to that, like, definitely this is how it starts. There's just, okay, we need your help with this one little thing to be competitive.
Yeah, do it for the country, do it for the, yeah, so this type of stuff.